All right, we will get started. I'm going to just share my screen with you guys. And yeah, from the beginning. Okay, so my name is Shelly, and I am the community educator for 360 Communities. I work in violence prevention, so I also am an advocate and help at the Lewis House. And so I'll tell you more about what that means, but that's just what I do for 360. I've worked there for over 3 years, and I've been a volunteer with the organization for over 10 years. So 360 Communities is an important part of my life, and I really believe in the work that they do. So we really have kind of 3 areas where we do our work. We have a community resources section of our agency where we have food shelves, 5 different food shelves all over Dakota County. We also have a kind of a holiday program called Armful of Love, where we offer families gifts. And this year it was gift cards, but we also do like Thanksgiving meals and things like that for people who are in need. And we also have family resource centers, 2 of them, one in Rosemount and one in Burnsville. And those are just locations that people can come to if they need help and support. Both of those locations have a food shelf, but we also have support workers at those locations, and our staff works at those locations to just help people get what they need, whether it's rental assistance or help with their finances or a winter jacket or whatever it is. We just try to work with families as they come to us. So that's our community resources. Then the yellow section you see is our school success program. So we actually have family support workers in a program called Partners for Success that are in 30 schools in Dakota County. And so our family support workers are kind of like social workers, and they just come alongside students. They offer support in whatever way they might need or their family might need. And that could be anything from helping a family get groceries to helping them, get assistance with their bills, or it could be connecting them with counseling or getting them support in some way. Maybe someone in the family has been the victim of domestic or sexual violence. So our family support workers just come alongside students and their parents, and we just try to offer support however we can. And so I used to be a family support worker in Hastings at Hastings Middle School. So some of you might recognize me because I worked there. My office was actually right next to Mrs. Latch and Mr. Black and Mrs. Rademacher in the main office of the building. So I am a huge fan of Hastings and miss you guys, but I still get to talk to you through classes like this. So that's kind of cool. So that's our Partners for Success program. We also have our violence prevention and intervention, which is this kind of green triangle that you see, and that's who I work for now. And so we really work in our community with building awareness around sexual and domestic violence, and we work with people who have been victimized by sexual and domestic violence. So we receive referrals from all of the police departments in Dakota County, whether it's the Dakota County Sheriff's Office or Hastings Police Department or Eagan Police Department. Anytime an assault happens and it is relationship violence, domestic violence, or sexual violence, that report is sent to us at 360, and we follow up with the person who's been victimized and offer support. We receive those law enforcement reports every day. We also have outreach workers in all of the police stations that work there. So in Hastings, our outreach worker's name is Molly, and she works at the Hastings Police Department and helps people in Hastings whenever any kind of assault or violence happens. And we also have 24-hour sexual assault services. We have a hotline that people can call. Anybody can call us at 360 Communities. We have a 24-hour support for anybody who has questions or needs to talk about sexual or domestic violence. And then also we have 2 Lewis House locations, and the Lewis House is actually a safe house for people to live in if they are fleeing relationship or domestic violence. And one is in Hastings and one is in Eagan. And so that's where I work. My office is at the Eagan Lewis House. And so I help answer the phones. I help fill shifts there. I work in the shelter, and I just help people however I can when I'm there. And then when I'm not there, I am a teacher, and I get to go share information about prevention to students like you, or to churches, or to businesses. I've been all kinds of places, wherever they'll take me, where I can talk about the importance of raising awareness, I'm willing to go. So that's a little bit about us at 360, who we are and what we do. It's kind of a very broad amount of things that we can do as a staff, and I'm really proud to work there. If you're a student that is passionate about this kind of work, we always have internships as you get older, and we have lots of positions that will be coming and going. So a lot of times people like me will come and volunteer, and then they'll apply for a job because they believe in the work so much. So we're always welcome to talk to you about that too. So today we're going to be talking about abusive patterns and sexual violence. Also, for the teachers, you do have 17 participants now, so there's more people here, just so you know. Yeah, so I'm going to have the students kind of figure out where the chat box is and go ahead and jump into the chat box. And I'd love to hear from you guys what you're looking forward to when the calendar changes to 2021. What's something you're looking forward to for next year? Because I know we're all kind of waiting for 2020 to be over with so we can move forward. So give me some things that you're looking forward to. No more COVID. Me too. Me too. Summer. Yes, we're a little ways away from that, but that's something to look forward to. Hanging out with friends, I agree. A new year, I agree. Your friend's birthday, yes. A normal sports season, I agree. Being able to do marching band, hockey, trap season, hanging out with friends, seeing friends. Yes, agree. Party with your friends. Yeah, that's really what I miss too. I miss hanging out with my friends. New friends. Teaching. Yes, in-person teaching. I agree with you, Chris. Sports to be normal. Absolutely. We are missing that at my house too. Well, thank you guys for sharing. And now I know that you're listening and you know how to use the chat box. So we're going to just keep moving here. But today we're going to be talking about recognizing abusive patterns in relationships, and we're going to be talking about what sexual violence is. So if at any time during the presentation you have a question, or you'd like to ask something in the chat box or the question and answer box, feel free to do so. And also at the end of the presentation, I will be sharing my personal contact information, so you can always email me with a question. I've had actually several students do that today, and I'm happy to help and be here for you in whatever way that I can. So as we go forward, my name is Shelly again. Yeah. So we're going to be talking first of all about healthy, unhealthy, and abusive relationships. And all of our relationships kind of are on a sliding scale somewhere in the middle of healthy, unhealthy, and abusive. We all have things about each one of us, because we're imperfect human beings, that are healthy. And then we have things that are unhealthy. And it's very easy for things to kind of slide back and forth on that scale. So I just want you all to know that there's like no perfect thing out there. We're all sort of somewhere in the middle. And as you look at the scale, this is kind of shows you how things just sort of gently fade from one to the other, right? It's not just green or yellow or orange, but we're kind of all somewhere in the middle. Things can be healthy in your relationship, in your communication, in the way that you respect, the way that you trust. You don't have to prove yourself. You just trust the way you're honest, but yet you can still keep things that are your own. You're equal and you enjoy your own personal things and your own personal time still. These are just ways that a relationship can be healthy. And then when they're unhealthy, they kind of start to, if you know, your communication starts to break down because there's a problem, or there's disrespect because someone's not being considerate. There's not trusting because someone feels like their privacy was invaded, or you know, there's something that happened that's making you not trusting. There's some dishonesty or hiding things. It's one thing to have things that are personal that you don't have to share, but it's another thing to lie, right? So just knowing that, and then one person feels like they have to have more important desires or control, and then also just hanging out with your partner or your partner's community, that's when things start to get unhealthy. And so then we see that unhealthy can very easily slide into abusive. So when you start building unhealthy habits, then it just kind of starts piling up, and you have to be aware of that when you're in a relationship. And so, like in abusive, then the communication becomes threatening. There's disrespect of the other person's boundaries, opinions, and safety. There's physical hurting that can happen, forcing, blaming the other person, controlling or isolating them, and pressuring them and forcing them. And I just want to point out too, on this abusive column, there's really only one here that is physical. So if someone were to come to us and say, I'm in an abusive relationship, a lot of times we just automatically think they're being hit or beat up or hurt in some way. And if you notice on the abusive column, only one of these things is actually a physically abusive thing. All of the others can be emotional or just relational, or just the way that they're treating the person. And so I just want you to be aware of that, that abusive behavior isn't just physical abuse. I think I have a question here. Let me just check. Okay, so you go to the next one. So this is the power and control wheel. This was created by actually an agency in Duluth that worked with people who are victims of domestic violence. And it was created because we kind of wanted to have a way that we can understand tactics or patterns that can be seen and used so that people can become aware if a relationship is abusive. And so at 360, we believe all abuse and violence is rooted in power and control. It's rooted in one person trying to have power and control over another. And so we see that play out in a variety of different ways. And so the little different pie pieces of the wheel are kind of tactics that someone who is abusive might use to try to gain power and control over another person. All of these things could be happening, or one of these things could be happening, and it doesn't necessarily mean there's abuse or violence, but it just is a tactic that as it grows and escalates can become abusive and violent. So just be aware of that as well. These are kind of red flags and things to look out for. So I like to just point out that anger and emotional abuse is kind of the root of how relationships kind of start to turn abusive. So if someone is going to try to gain control or power over another person, a lot of times they start with the emotional abuse because it's more subtle, and it's a way that they can kind of wear that person down and then try to gain more control over them. And so we see anger and emotional abuse as a really prevalent thing in all of the abusive relationships that where we work with people who call us and need help, that this anger and emotional abuse is kind of where it all starts. And it's things like putting them down, calling them names, making them think that they're crazy, playing mind games with them, humiliating them in front of other people, and then making them feel guilty about it. So that's really a big red flag, and it's something to be really aware of. And even if that is subtly happening, it's important that we have kind of the knowledge of how this is unhealthy, so that it will raise a red flag in us and we'll go, hey, you know what, this is hard and maybe we need to get some help, or maybe I shouldn't be dating you because this isn't what I want. It's not healthy. So that's the first place I like to start. Then if you look at intimidation down here, intimidation is something someone can do without using any words and without using any physical force at all. So it can just be that they are trying to stand between you and a door when you're leaving a room, or they're giving you a really bad look. Or they might take something and smash it and throw it to the ground, or take your phone and throw it, or punch a hole in a wall, or destroy property, hurting a pet, or even showing someone that they have a gun or they have a weapon. That is a tactic of intimidation. It's one person trying to say to another person, you need to watch out. And that's exerting power and control. And so when we do that, it can escalate. It can escalate quickly. So that's a tactic that can be used. Minimizing, denying blame. So someone saying, well, it really isn't as big of a deal as you think it is, or this wouldn't have happened if you hadn't have done this, or this is your fault that it happened, and shifting the responsibility off of themselves as the abuser and onto someone or something else. That is minimizing and denying blame. Threatening behavior, making threats against someone. If you don't do this, I'm going to hurt you. If you don't do this, I'm going to tell people these things. If you don't do this, I'm going to commit suicide. If you break up with me, I'm going to commit suicide. I can't live without you, and so no one can have you if I can't have you. All of that is threatening behavior. And of course, if someone says to us they're going to commit suicide or they want to kill themselves, that is an immediate red flag for every single one of us to help that person get help, because saying it out loud is a cry for help. But if someone is saying that to try to control you, that's manipulative behavior. So if they're like, if you leave me, I'm doing this, that is threatening, manipulative behavior, and it's something to be aware of. Always try to get help with that. Let's see. Sexual coercion is exactly what it sounds like. So coercion is trying to force someone to do something that they have not given consent to do. So manipulating them, making threats, trying to get someone pregnant to have control over them, getting someone drunk or drugged to have sex, or even just physically forcing. All of those things are tactics. And they can be just manipulative, or it can be physical action as well. Isolation and exclusion. We see often that someone who is abusive will try to isolate the victim and get them alone, get them away from other people, get so that they don't hang out with their friends or their family anymore, and they're only with that person. And one of the reasons they do that is so if they are exerting power and control over the person, then no one is there to witness it or see it. And so they've got them alone. Also, it makes the person who's being victimized feel like the only person they can count on is their abuser, because that's all they have. Everyone else they've sort of let go of. And so it is a tactic that abusers use to try to get control over people. So something to be aware of. Peer pressure, that would be saying, you know, if you don't do this, I'm going to send this picture to people, or I'm going to make this post about you on social media, or just posting something on social media to pressure you, telling lies about you to other people. All of that is an example of just using peers against you to try to get what they want. So that's power and control. And then the last one is using social status, which I think is similar to peer pressure, but it's, you know, kind of trying to say, well, I'm better than you, so you know, you have to do what I say, or I'm a man, so you have to do what I say, things like that. So if you look at the next slide, the abuse of technology in abusive relationships is something that I really want to cover because it is so prevalent now, and I think it will be for the rest of our lives. We're all using technology all the time. Right now, we're using technology to have this class, and you all have access to it. Most of you have a smartphone. Most of you have access to a computer or internet or a way to get on social media or to communicate with each other even by a text. And so all of those things can be ways that abuse happens, even unintentionally. Someone shares something and then you reshare it, not knowing that that's going to hurt someone else. All of that can spread like wildfires on Snapchat and Instagram. And I just want to challenge each one of you to be completely aware of yourself and take responsibility for yourself when you're on social media. You know, even I have talked to my son too, he's a teenager, just about his username for things. Like all of that stuff is sometimes can be used against you or can be used to abuse you or can be a poor reflection of who you are. So just make good choices, protect yourself, have your security set high, change your passwords often. Don't share your password with other people. Don't share your login with other people. It's just inviting this kind of abuse to happen. And we've even seen in some relationships where people will come to 360 for help, and their abuser has access to their passwords, to their emails. They know how to get into their Ring doorbell. They know how to view the security cameras, whatever it might be. My husband has access to almost all of my passwords because we share a lot of the same passwords. So it's very common for people to know that about each other. So when you're in a relationship, it's very important that you keep good boundaries about this and just are careful and smart. So just keep your guard up high. Okay. So we're gonna just go through a few red flags. This information is also available on our website, so you can always look at this as well on our website at any time. But question relationships with partners who blame you, who have a history of trouble with the law, get into fights a lot, like to destroy things, hit walls, break property. Again, they blame you for anything bad that happens or say it's your fault for how you're being treated. They're abusive towards other siblings or other family members. If someone is abusive towards other people but not you, and they're hitting walls and throwing their phone down and doing all kinds of things to show power kind of around you, but it's not necessarily at you, it's a very big red flag. Eventually that behavior will transfer into the relationship and it will be towards you in some way. And so it's important for you to know and understand that's a red flag, something to look out for. And you guys are at, you know, this time in your life where you're starting to be in relationships, you're starting to have really big feelings, and it's very real. What you're going through is real. When I was in high school, I was in a very real relationship and a long-term relationship, and nobody taught me about any of these things. And I didn't have necessarily good role models showing me either and modeling for me what a good relationship was. And so my life would be completely different, I believe, if I had been taught some of these things early on. So the way that people treat you is important. You deserve to be respected. You deserve to be valued. Your partner deserves to be respected and valued. And when these red flags come up, that's like your emotional warning system telling you, hey, I need to really stop and think about this. What is going on here? And kind of separate yourself from the emotions, separate yourself from all of your big feelings, and just look at it with logical eyes. This person is acting this way, and that's a red flag. Okay, so it's my little preach to you right now. But let's see, we'll keep going down the list. They're putting people down, they're always angry, they try to isolate you and control who you see and where you go. You should be able to still be an independent individual, even if you're in a relationship. You still get to do the things you want to do. You get to play sports, you get to hang out with your friends, you get to do what you want to do. Nobody gets to say you have to quit, you know, singing in the choir when you date me because I don't like people who sing in the choir, or you have to stop playing hockey because I'm your girlfriend. That's not how it works. That's not a healthy relationship. In healthy relationships, we respect each other and we support each other. They nag you or force you to be sexual or physical when you don't want to. They're physically rough with you, and that can be more than just pushing and shoving. It can even be hurting seriously, or something even little like pulling someone's hair or pinching them. Things like that is disrespectful, and it's one way that someone who's abusive might be trying to control someone else. Taking your money, accusing you of flirting when you're not, accusing you of cheating on them when you're not, so being super paranoid about that. Threatening to kill themselves if you break up, or saying they can't live without you, or saying, this is a common phrase that we hear, if I can't have you, no one can have you. And that's a manipulative, threatening statement. It's experiencing extreme mood swings, and then telling you to shut up, putting you down, calling you names. All of these are red flags. So I want to plant those seeds in your mind. Let me just make sure I have the have it set so you can see it and hear it. Here we go. Okay, so we're gonna watch this video and we'll talk about it when it's over.
Because I love you. I want to be your only guy.
Because I love you, skip class with me. Let's stay in bed today.
Because I love you, I just want to be with you so freaking much.
Because I love you.
I waited for you after Chem Lab.
You were walking with Mark?
Because I love you.
You shouldn't be hanging out with that dude.
You should know how dumb that makes me look.
I don't care if she's your lab partner.
Why do you have texts from him?
Because I love you. This number,
Delete.
Because I love you. This Jason number?
delete.
And Ben,
Delete.
because I love you, I should smash your phone.
I'll let you give me your password instead.
Because I love you.
I will check your texts every day.
You got lucky. Because I love you.
Because I love you.
You think it's okay?
Because I love you. You understand.
Because I love you. You stop talking to your classmates. And you feel completely alone.
Because I love you. That's not love.
All right, so this campaign, onelove.org and That's Not Love, was actually created by a couple of parents who lost their daughter. She was killed by her boyfriend, and they kind of watched her go through this relationship that just increasingly became more and more violent and had more and more red flags. And so they created this kind of campaign, That's Not Love, just to communicate to students like yourself, like there are things that should not be happening. So you saw a bunch of those things in this video, like what, you know, give me your phone, delete these numbers, you can't walk to class with this person, you need to stay with me all day, I only want to be with you and no one else. All of those things are possessive and controlling behaviors, and they're red flags. They're things to be aware of. In a healthy relationship, you are open and honest, but you get to do your own thing too. And there's trust, and nobody's controlling anything that you're doing. So you're working together to make mutual decisions. For the teachers, also, you have 32 participants right now, so you have quite a bit more. So I think maybe some came late. So anyway, I'm gonna have you guys who are all here go ahead and jump into the chat box, and I'm gonna have you, oh, sorry, I went to the wrong thing. I'm just gonna have you go ahead and type in, what is sexual violence? So when you hear the term sexual violence, what does that mean? What word comes to mind? What does that make you think of? What is sexual violence and what does it mean? So go ahead and type in the chat box. Yep, a couple of you immediately said rape, which is absolutely one of the first words. Yep, manipulation, coercion, abusive, rape, force. Yep, sexual harassment, without doing something without consent. Yep, not consensual, absolutely. So good, you guys. Thank you so much for jumping in. Non-consent, without someone's consent, harassment. Good. And I'm glad that we're kind of talking about it openly, because I think sometimes, you know, people are just like, oh, if sexual violence happened, then that means someone was raped. And I think it's important that we understand there's a lot of different things that fall under the term sexual violence. And I just like to give a few of these like current examples. Do you guys know how to raise your hand on this? So raise your hand if you have seen the show 13 Reasons Why. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of you raising your hand. Awesome. Yes. So 13 Reasons Why is, you know, story on Netflix, multiple seasons, but the girl featured, Hannah, kills herself, commits suicide, but she leaves a bunch of tapes talking about what happened leading up to that. And it's just a very eye-opening way to see how trauma, when someone has been traumatized, how it affects every single part of their life. And so for her, she had been sexually assaulted. She had been through a lot of really hard things, and it kind of spilled over into every part of her life. And so I watched this earlier this year, right when we started quarantine in March, and I just was like, I was so surprised at the way that it really showed how this can affect a person. And it made me even more passionate about the work that we're doing, how we really need to be talking about this. We need to not be silent about what's going on, but really openly discuss and talk about what's healthy and what's not healthy, what's consent and what's not consent. So we're gonna be jumping into that. But also, this is a picture of Chanel Miller. Chanel Miller is a woman from California, and she was sexually assaulted by a student at Stanford. So in the media, it happened a few years ago, but in the media, it was portrayed as the Stanford rape case or the Stanford rapist. And her name wasn't shared in the media at the beginning because they do that to try to protect people who've been victimized. So they just would call her, you know, the Stanford rape victim. And she ended up writing a book later just about how she felt like she had lost her identity, and she would read about herself in the paper like she wasn't a real person, and her name wouldn't be used. And so she released a book called Know My Name by Chanel Miller, because she didn't want her identity to be that she was the victim of sexual assault. She wanted her identity to be that she was Chanel Miller, and she has all of these gifts and talents that she wanted to be seen for, instead of being seen as this person who had been assaulted. So that's kind of a famous case. We'll talk about it a little bit more. This is R. Kelly. Some of you guys, raise your hand if you've heard of R. Kelly. You know who he is. Yep. So he's kind of a famous R&B rap star. He's from Chicago, and he wrote the song for the Michael Jordan movie, you know, the cartoon movie, I Believe I Can Fly. I Believe I Can Touch the Sky. That was written by R. Kelly. And so he's been famous for a long time. Most of my adult life, I've actually known and have R. Kelly CDs and stuff from when I was in college. And so he's like a famous guy. And what he was doing was he was recruiting young girls to come and be a part of his, you know, recording industry. So he would say, hey, you know, come come to Chicago, you can live with me, I'm going to help you record an album. He would even get their parents to like give permission for their kids to go and stay with him, and actually he was sexually abusing and sexually assaulting them, and they were living in his home with him, and almost like they were prisoners or trapped. There was a lot of coercive and abusive behavior, a lot of red flags, and he's now in jail and is waiting trial for these crimes, and he's been charged in Minnesota and Chicago as well. So just kind of a famous case. But when we're talking about sexual violence, it includes a lot of different things, not just that someone, you know, was attacked by a stranger in an alley. I mean, that definitely would be considered sexual violence, but if someone, it can also be in a relationship, it can also be, you know, something that happened when you were drunk or intoxicated and you don't remember, like Chanel Miller. She woke up and didn't know what had happened to her. Or it can be disguised as something else, like R. Kelly manipulated those girls. So let's just look at kind of all of the different terms that fall under sexual violence. It's kind of an umbrella term. So what that means is like there's one big word, sexual violence, and all of these things are underneath it. It can be assault, it can be rape, it can be intimate partner violence between a boyfriend and girlfriend, molestation, abuse, incest. It can be stalking if someone's taking pictures of you that you haven't given consent to, or doing something without your knowledge. Sex trafficking. And sex trafficking isn't necessarily like, you know, being sold by a John, you know, downtown, or a girl gets taken from a mall and then is sold into sex trafficking. It isn't necessarily that. In a lot of cases that we see right here in Dakota County, it's a boyfriend and girlfriend relationship where one person will say, this person owes me money, so you have to go do this sexual act so that I owe them money, so then I don't owe them anything anymore. So it's just any kind of trading sex for services or money is considered sex trafficking. And a lot of cases that we see at the Lewis House are between a boyfriend and girlfriend, or what they thought was a boyfriend and girlfriend relationship. So just to be aware of that. There's exploitation, so sexting or telling someone, I have this picture of you, so I'm gonna, you know, do this unless you do what I say. Sexual harassment is anytime someone in a position of power is telling you you have to do something. So, I mean, that would apply to a teacher, a pastor, you know, an uncle even. Anyone who has kind of some authority or control over you who's taking advantage of that is considered sexual harassment. Unwanted sexual contact, pornography, reproductive coercion. I'm going to get you pregnant so that you can't leave. So I'm always going to be in your life. That would be sexual coercion. So that term sexual violence covers a lot of things, and it is sexual activity that happens when consent is not obtained or freely given. So what is consent? So if you guys jump into the chat box, I'm just going to ask you, when you get together with your friends or your family, and you order pizza, or you go out for dinner for pizza, remember when we used to do that? How do you decide what you're having? What do you do when you go out for pizza? Do you all get the same thing and pick one pizza, or do you share, or do you each get your own pizza, or do you do half and half? So tell me in the chat box how you decide what you're going to have on your pizza. Some of you are saying share, some of you are saying half and half, some of you are saying we all just agree and decide what sounds good. Everybody gets pepperoni. We usually go half and half, depends on the day. Yep, okay, so exactly. In my family, I always say we're not pizza compatible. My husband likes weird things like artichokes and capers and stuff that I don't want on my pizza. I want like onions and veggies and mushrooms on my pizza, and my kids want none of that. They just want meat or cheese, something really simple and plain. My middle son thinks you should have pineapple on pizza. So there's like half of the people in this world love pineapple on pizza, half of the people in this world hate pineapple on pizza, right? So we all have to sit down and we have to decide, okay, we're ordering pizza. What do you want on your pizza, right? It's just an easy conversation. And that is something to think about when you're thinking about consent. We're talking about consent. Consent is just a fancy word that means permission. I am giving someone permission, or I am asking for permission. And the same thing is true when you're ordering a pizza. You're talking about it. You're asking, what do you want? Here's what I want. Let's work together to come up with something that works for both of us. Let's compromise. And so consent is working together. It's talking. It's coming up with ideas together. So we're going to watch a video. And I'm going to pull it up separately because it works better that way. All right, here we go.
If you're still struggling with consent, just imagine instead of initiating sex, you're making them a cup of tea. You say, "Hey, would you like a cup of tea?" And they go, "Oh my God, I would love a cup of tea, thank you." Then you know they want a cup of tea. If you say, "Hey, would you like a cup of tea?" And they're like, I'm not really sure. Then you could make them a cup of tea or not, but be aware they might not drink it. And if they don't drink it, then, and this is the important part, don't make them drink it. Just because you made it doesn't mean you are entitled to watch them drink it. And if they say no thank you, then don't make them tea. At all. Just don't make them tea. Don't make them drink tea. Don't get annoyed at them for not wanting tea. They just don't want tea, okay? They might say, "Yes, please. That's kind of you." And then when the tea arrives, they actually don't want the tea at all. Sure, that's kind of annoying as you've gone to all the effort of making the tea, but they remain under no obligation to drink the tea. They did want tea, now they don't. Some people change their mind in the time that it takes to boil the kettle, brew the tea, and add the milk. And it's okay for people to change their mind. And you are still not entitled to watch them drink it. And if they're unconscious, don't make them tea. Unconscious people don't want tea. And they can't answer the question, "Do you want tea?" because they're unconscious. Okay, maybe they were conscious when you asked them if they wanted tea. And they said yes. But in the time it took you to boil the kettle, brew the tea, and add the milk, they are now unconscious. You should just put the tea down. Make sure the unconscious person is safe. And this is the important part again. Don't make them drink the tea. They said yes then, sure, but unconscious people don't want tea. If someone said yes to tea, started drinking it, and then passed out before they'd finished it, don't keep on pouring it down their throat. Take the tea away. Make sure they're safe, because unconscious people don't want tea. Trust me on this. If someone said yes to tea around your house last Saturday, that doesn't mean they want you to make them tea all the time. They don't want you to come around to their place unexpectedly and make them tea and force them to drink it going, "But you wanted tea last week." Or to wake up to find you pouring tea down their throat going, "But you wanted tea last night." If you can understand how completely ludicrous it is to force people to have tea when they don't want tea, and you're able to understand when people don't want tea, then how hard is it to understand it when it comes to sex? Whether it's tea or sex, consent is everything. And on that note, I'm going to go make myself a cup of tea.
All right, so consent is as easy as understanding if someone wants to have a cup of tea with you. And I love this analogy. It's silly. It's simple. You wouldn't force someone to drink tea if they didn't want to drink tea. Just because you go out for tea with someone once doesn't mean that you get to go every day next week. And it's specific. If someone's intoxicated, if someone's passed out, if someone is sleeping, it's really hard for them to drink tea. And the same is true with a physical relationship with giving consent. And so as we look at this, it's important that you think of this simple analogy. Giving permission is something that is so important. And in the state of Minnesota, it is a criminal act to have sex with someone that you have not gotten consent from. And so I need you to really understand it. I think it's one of the biggest misunderstood ideas and concepts that exist. And if we all can wrap our brains around what consent is, we can have an impact on decreasing sexual and domestic violence, because it's respect. Consent is respect. It's understanding that the person I'm with deserves to be respected and valued, and that I deserve to be respected and valued as well. So we like to refer to consent with the FRIES acronym, F-R-I-E-S. And F means that consent is something that's free. It's freely given. It doesn't have any kind of cost attached to it. So by that, I mean, you're not going to say, if you love me, then you'll do this. Or if you don't do this, I'm going to break up with you. All of those are putting a price on someone's yes or no. And there should be no price attached with consent. It should be free. It should be something that's freely given. Consent is also reversible. So maybe someone says yes, but then they change their mind at some point, and that is okay. And that, just like in the video, when the person is passed out, it's not your job to give them tea. It's your job to make sure that they're safe. So if someone starts to show hesitation, or they say, no, I'm not okay, it's your job as their partner or the person who's with them to make sure that they're safe. It's your job to take care of them and make sure they're okay. And so consent can be reversed at any time. It can be taken off the table, even if it was put on the table 60 seconds ago. Consent is also informed, like we talked about ordering pizza. It's something that you know, you expect, you're not surprised. You've talked about it ahead of time. You've ruled out that there's any confusion. It's informed. Also, it's enthusiastic. And by enthusiastic, I mean both verbally enthusiastic, I'm going to say yes, but then also non-verbally enthusiastic. So I'm showing with my body that I'm into this too. But if someone says yes verbally and then non-verbally they're shutting down, that's a sign for you as their partner to say, hey, you're not okay right now. Let's talk about this. Let's take a minute and make sure you're all right. It should be an enthusiastic yes, both verbal and nonverbal. And then it's specific. Consent is specific in that if I say yes to, holding your hand, that doesn't mean I say yes to kissing you. And if I say yes on Saturday, that doesn't mean I say yes on Sunday. It's specific to the time and the situation that you're in. In healthy relationships, which is what we're all kind of trying to go for, right? We ask for consent. That is respect. We want to be respected, and we want to respect the people that we're with. So we're going to watch this video. It was made by Chanel Miller, who I told you about at the beginning, who was the Stanford rape victim. And she released a book. And so this video she released with her book. So we're going to watch it and then we'll talk about it.
It happened when I was 22, on the cusp of my adulthood. When you are assaulted, an identity is given to you. It threatens to swallow up everything you plan to do and be. I became Emily Doe. Assault teaches you to shrink. Makes you afraid to exist. Shame, really, can kill you. Unconscious, stupid, dumpster, swimmer, Stanford, half-naked, nameless, nobody. Nobody wants to be defined by the worst thing that's happened to them. I feared those words would follow me forever, so I did not speak. In court, the judge used words like moderate, less serious, to describe the crime. I remember the trial. The defense attorney stood before the jury and said, Chanel knows how you get in blackouts. You drink a lot of alcohol, and that's what she did this night, and many other nights, to be honest. So I wrote a victim impact statement, 12 pages. I read it at the sentencing, straight to the man who hurt me. You don't know me, but you've been inside me. Fingers had been jabbed inside me. My bare skin and head had been rubbing against me. Who has been irreversibly hurt behind a dumpster, waiting to figure out if I was worth something. But the judge did not hear me. When I released the statement, something else happened.
It's forever changed the way I carry myself, the way I believe you can't be silenced.
The world breathed life into my words. I spent all this time absorbing, listening to their voices until I understood. Chanel knows how you get in blackouts. Chanel also knows how to write. And Chanel knows how to draw. Survivors will not be limited, labeled, boxed in, oppressed. We will not be isolated. We have had enough. Enough of the shame, diminishment, the disbelief, enough loneliness. Look at all this togetherness. Look out for one another. Seek whatever you wish to be in life. Speak up when they try to silence you. Stand up when they shove you down. No one gets to define you. You do. You do. My name is Chanel, and I am with you.
All right, so Chanel wrote this and wrote the book, Know My Name, and she created a bunch of YouTube videos actually for people, and she really lived her life to create awareness around people who've been victimized and have survived, and that they have a voice and an identity. And I think one of the things that happens when someone has been hurt in a sexual assault specifically is they feel like they've lost their voice, and they feel like they are no longer seen or heard. And they're only defined by this terrible thing. And she really wanted people to know that they can be seen and heard, that they're people and they're important. And also I showed this video because it really addresses the idea of victim blaming. So like in the video, the judge said, or the prosecutor said, you know, Chanel knows how to get into blackouts. Chanel knows how to use alcohol, and like that it was somehow her fault that she was out with her sister and she happened to be drinking alcohol, she blacked out, and then someone sexually assaulted her, so that was her fault. And it isn't her fault. The blame needs to go on the person who did the crime, not on her. So it doesn't matter if you've been drinking, what you were wearing, who you were with, you don't deserve to be assaulted. No one does. And so she really lives to, you know, educate about taking the blame off of the victim. Even when she released her victim impact statement online, she was like attacked by people in the media who were saying, well, if you hadn't have done this, it wouldn't have happened. And, you know, it's just like saying, like someone who maybe was sexually assaulted in a car, it would be like you saying to them, well, you can never get in a car again, or you might be sexually assaulted. That's ridiculous. We ride in cars all the time without being sexually assaulted. And so it's just understanding and knowing that the blame should never be on a victim. It should always be on the person who committed the act. All right, so I sent your teachers several scenarios, and so you will be able to discuss those with them in the coming days. And if you have questions about any of that, please let me know. But I'm just going to wrap up with some information for all of you to take with you. So if you are in a dangerous situation, if you are in a relationship that is violent in any way, if you've been sexually assaulted, call 911 and get help. That is always an option. 911, you can call 911 from a phone that doesn't have service. You can call 911 from anywhere. So do that. If you can't call 911 or you're afraid to call 911 because of getting the police involved, you can always call an advocate at 360 Communities. We're available 24 hours a day, and you can even call anonymously if you need to and say, I just want to talk to somebody, hypothetically. So we're available. There's no age limit on who can call us. There's no gender specific. We only talk to women, or we only talk to certain people. We talk to everyone, whoever calls us. So get support, make the call. If you need help with things like a harassment restraining order, an order for protection, we can help you with that at 360. We have advocates who do that. We have support groups available online, and they're completely anonymous as well. So if you want to join a support group at any time, you can. It's all available on our website. Also, helping someone else is important. Maybe some of you will never experience a violent relationship, and I hope you never do, but I promise you that you'll have someone in your life, a friend or family member, who does. And so be a friend that listens with empathy and compassion. That's the most important thing. And listening, I think, is the most important thing, and believing the person when they share with you. We see at 360 that 98% of people who share with us a situation are not making something up. They're telling the truth. And so if someone is having the courage to share something really hard with you, chances are they're telling you the truth. So listen without judgment, find a private and safe place to talk to them, focus on them and what they're experiencing and not on the abuser or the situation necessarily. Plan for things that might trigger them or how they might react. Ask questions instead of lecturing. Be patient, encourage your friend's strengths. Go and find a trusted adult. I cannot emphasize this enough. When I worked in Hastings at the middle school, I was available to just have someone come talk to me. Go and find people who are there for you. Your teachers are there for you, your school counselors, your pastors, your parents, your next door neighbor, your grandparents. I am there for you. Go and find someone to talk to if you have questions or concerns, or you need help, or your friend needs help. We can help you. Take care of yourself. Sometimes when you start taking care of someone who is hurting, their hurt kind of gets piled onto you and you stop taking care of yourself. It's really important to take care of yourself too, and talk to an advocate. We are here for you. This is a screenshot of our website at 360 Communities, and under what we do, we have a violence prevention and intervention resource page. It has all of these different things you can click on. Talk to an advocate, go to a support group, connect with us online. We have a bunch of resources. What are the red flags? How do I safety plan with someone who might be in danger? How do I help them work through those steps? What's power and control? Then this is kind of the difference between harassment restraining orders and orders for protection, which we help people with all the time. You can just click on our support groups and go right to that page if you need to get there. Or if you are wanting to talk to someone specifically about sexual assault, we have that as well, available as well. 100% confidential, 24 hours a day. We never take a day off. So we're here for you. So take a screenshot or a picture of this information. This is who we are. We're here for you. These are our phone numbers, our website. Down here at the bottom, this is my personal cell phone and my work email, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or concerns you might have. I'd be happy to connect you with help if you need help. With that, are there any announcements from the teachers before we kind of wrap up? I know we're getting to the end here.
No, I just want to give a big shout out. Thank you, Shelly, for your passion and for you taking your time being here with us. Students, I'm so glad that you showed up today, and I hope you learned something. If you have specific questions, you can reach out to your teacher, and then you also have information for Shelly here if you need it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I love Hastings, you know this. And then finally, students, if you just want to take a picture of this with your camera, this is my student evaluation. It'll take you right to the website where you can just fill out an evaluation. It comes to me anonymously. We love to get your feedback and offer ways to support you that way too. And yes, thank you, you guys, for saying thank you to me. You're all wonderful. Have a great rest of the school year, and hopefully I'll see you in person soon. All right. I am going to stop recording, and Miss Mayer and Mrs. Moss, I will try to send you that within the next hour, okay?
Awesome. Thank you so, so much.
Yep, you are welcome. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.